Oh, my dad would get a kick out of that.
Okay.
That's it. That's our intro.
Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the Behind the Adventure Show. My name is Danielle, and this is Calvin.
What's up?
So, this is the show where me and my travel buddies, we talk, we joke, we reminisce, and we roast each other about trips in the past, and maybe even talking about some trips planned in the future, and all the spontaneous craziness that ensues in completing those trips, because, you know, as much as it's fun to look at a little video that has all the best clips of trips, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and we figured it would be fun to talk about it.
Oh, for sure. And to be fair, we honestly didn't realize just how much people... Oh, gosh.
Maybe grabbing the wood wasn't a good idea.
That's... You can't make... Oh, we're officially camping now. Danielle's gotten her hands dirty.
Yes, I literally have leftover ash all over my hands.
We'll get you some wipes when we're done filming.
Oh, well. Yeah, continue. I'm going to get myself some of the hand wipes we just bought.
Do you want to use my crocodile wipes?
I think I'll use these.
Okay, whatever. This is how everything goes when we do trips. There's always some unplanned thing. But quite honestly, part of the reason why we decided to even do this whole little series is because back when Danielle had a graduation, it was me, Danielle, my friend Hannah, and some other friends. We were all hanging out after her graduation. And, you know, they kind of knew Danielle did trips and stuff. And it was kind of like, hey, you know, we do trips. Oh, you have trip stories. And I think we honestly forget that the story behind what you see, there's a lot more that goes on that you don't see. So the whole point behind this is we're kind of sharing the hilarious moments, the good, the bad, the ugly, the everything in between, about what goes on. So, case in point, nothing goes according to plan.
I wouldn't necessarily say nothing, but yeah, there is a lot of adaptability that happens in these trips because, sure, we have a preliminary plan, but sometimes things change, either logistic-wise or just circumstantial-wise, and we've learned over the years that, you know, we just have to go with the flow for the situations in order to either salvage the trip or just change it altogether. And yeah, this is kind of a way to, again, be entertaining because of all the craziness that happens, but also give a splash of reality to the trip videos that you see on the YouTube channel, Living the Adventure. Because, yeah, as I said before, sometimes the camera doesn't necessarily catch everything that ensues or goes on just to make a trip happen.
Well, not only that, there's a lot of stuff that, as the old saying goes, gets left on the cutting room floor. I mean, the reality is we try to make short videos that are very condensed and concise, but you're always going to have to cut something out, and for the sake of the videos, there are a lot of backstories that don't get shown, for better or for worse.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, for those of you that are watching this on YouTube and wondering, where the heck are we? We're coming to you, well...
Pseudo-live,
sure, from, Kings Canyon in Azalea Campground.
Campsite number 3.
Yes, and it's really lovely out here, and that's another thing that I wanted to do for this show is as much as, you know, we could obviously do this in, like, you know, a makeshift studio or something like that, because we also wanted to make this a podcast. So those of you that are listening to the audio version of this, hello to you as well. But there's just something about talking out in nature that...
As we have a crow or a raven yelling at us.
Yes, that just... It appeals to me more than talking in a room.
Well, I mean, it's not a sterile environment. There's things going on around us. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and you feel more... You're going to remember more in a familiar environment like this where you've got, you know, things that come to mind as well.
That is very true.
Kind of sparks your, you know, memory.
All right, so a little bit about our backgrounds because we've done a bunch of these videos now, but who the heck is behind the camera still is kind of a mystery. So, my background, and he can attest to this, I had never done filming of any kind growing up. I mean, sure, my parents had a video camera, and we had like cameras that we took pictures with like any other family, but I had never used, when GoPro became a thing, I had never used a GoPro. I had never like filmed when we had done vacations and stuff like that. And that was another thing, is that actually when I was younger, we didn't really do a lot of camping. We did a couple of trips, but that was just something that we didn't really do as a family, which is kind of interesting because my dad was an avid camper in his younger days. But when, the family got busy, it just didn't transfer over, I guess. So when I got older and I started doing more camping trips and just seeing how many beautiful places are out there and just how refreshed and rejuvenated you can feel after being out in nature for a little while, regardless of where it is. It was something that I just really wanted to capture. And I have this guy to thank because he's got more of the filming background, because it was basically through him that I even got into filming in the first place. So why don't you elaborate on that?
Well, I pretty much grew up in my dad's RT radio television classes over at Moore Park College, either being in front of the camera, behind the camera, all that kind of stuff. So being that my dad taught both a television style, more of like a multi-camera interview style thing, a little bit like this, only fancier. And then he also taught one that was more like go make a short film, which is more of what we do on the channel. I learned a whole crap ton of stuff in those classes, and being that I pretty much grew up in there doing everything under the sun, as a kid, my dad had a bunch of old video equipment, so I got to mess around with that, learn how to do editing, all that stuff. And then I got the gateway drug for me getting into GoPros effectively was my sister found a Groupon to do a scuba diving trip, and we went to some dive shop in Burbank, and then we went to a pool in Pacoima. Totally throw some shit on Pacoima here. Anybody who's from the LA area will get it. And then we went over to Catalina Island and dove off of the casino. Well, I wanted something to film underwater with, and back at the time the GoPro Hero 2 had come on out, and I plunked down some decent money on that thing. And I'm actually glad I filmed it, even though I only ever did one open water dive, froze to death doing it, and my sister was able to get some really cool underwater photos because we didn't have enough memory. It was a disaster in that department. But it really kind of got me started into filming things, and then I was working on a bunch of projects, and people were like, well, why don't you make a YouTube channel about it? You know so much. So I was like, oh, what the heck, I'll give it a try. So that kind of got me started on the whole YouTube thing, and then it kind of just evolved from there. But really what got you started in filming was, I forget which came first. Us doing the GoPro handle, us doing like the paddleboarding trip where I gave you the OG GoPro handle and you swam in the water for like 5 minutes at Ventura Beach with it? Or was that when you and your friend came up to visit me in San Francisco? I can't remember which one.
You know what? That is a very good question. I don't know which one came first.
I'm going to say I think it was...
I don't think you had tested the rig in the water yet when we were up in SF.
I'll know by when I started doing my underwater GoPro intro. I can look back later and include it in post. Mm-hmm. But the point is, I pretty much, I remember the time that we went paddleboarding, and I thought I had told you how to operate the GoPro. I don't think I'd given you very clear directions. I think I assumed that you already knew how to do it, just tossed it to you and said, go film something. And you ended up accidentally shooting a couple of photos instead. Oh. And you're like, no! Like all freaking out about it. It was no big deal. But then after that, however the timing went doesn't really matter. I kind of was looking for somebody to help with learning how to use, testing the GoPro rig in the water, because I'm fine on the water in a boat. I can swim, but I'm not I get cold very easily in the water. And Danielle's the exact opposite. She swims great, doesn't get cold easy, yada, yada, yada. So I pretty much said, I will buy you dinner if you come and help me film a video. And you're like, I get to go in the water? I can do that. So that, in a way, is kind of how you did that. And then when you and a friend came up to visit and we went flying with my friend Ken and all that stuff, that's really what got you started on filming things.
Yeah.
It was technically not even for your channel. It was a little bit with mine. But it really kind of got your gears turning. And I very quickly figured out that you were an incredible person at filming stuff. Like, you had an eye for it. Anybody can take a camera and go, oh, look, here's where I am. But you were... When we were on the Golden Gate Bridge, you were filming us, you were filming the towers, you were getting really cool shots that normally you would expect from somebody who actually had formal training. So I was really impressed, and that's when I was kind of like, hey, you seem to know this. Why don't you go film some stuff?
Yeah, and I literally had no idea what he was doing or what I was doing because he just handed me, he had, because he does 3D printing, he had this 3D printed camera rig that he wanted to try out. And so he hands it to me and it's like, hey, why don't you try filming stuff? I'm like, what do I do with this?
Just point and shoot.
So I figured, okay, well, this looks cool. Let's see what happens if I do this. Let's see what happens when I do that. And I basically just experimented with it, and apparently it turned out good.
Well, then also to add on to it, then you were so good at filming, I was able to get you up to San Francisco because my mom had a bunch of free Southwest points. Got you up for free with that. You were staying at my grandmother's house, so that was free. I got you in on a media pass, and you just went nuts filming over at Maker Faire.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, and I will say the really nice thing about having a second person with you filming at an event is you don't have to panic about filming everything. Mm-hmm. I actually got to enjoy the event because I knew somebody else was filming, and because we, some of our interests overlap, but some of our interests are different. I got to experience parts of it and see things filmed that I never would have touched on.
Yeah.
Which really helped. But, I mean, to give an idea of the dedication Danielle has to filming, I remember when you sent me that message while you were filming Adam Savage doing his talk. You're like, hey, my batteries are dying. I had all the batteries and all the filming equipment. And it's a big crowd when Adam would speak on Sunday mornings. And I'm like, oh, shoot, I am never going to find Danielle on this. Never mind. There's this bright orange camera rig being held up. And as one arm is literally going tired, she just grabs on with the other hand and switches. And then I get on over there and there's...
I needed to hold it high to be above everyone's heads.
And then the best part is, like, some guy comes up asking what it is, and I'm explaining it, and you're undoing your fanny pack to hand him a business card, and I'm just like, I don't pay Danielle enough to do this for me. And then the best part is, like, my good friend as well as my friend Jimmy, and you know him as well, Rick shows up, and then Mitch shows up, and like 2 other people show up. They're just like, yeah, we saw the camera rig in the air and came. And I'm like, geez, this is like a beacon for people. Because they recognize the rig as being associated with me.
Yeah.
But it's like it was after that you really kind of started to get into your groove with feeling more confident with filming, and I'll let you take over from there.
And for those of you who are wondering what the heck we're talking about, what is Maker Faire? Sadly, it's not a thing anymore. But it was something. It was in San Mateo. Was that where
it was?
It
was at the San Mateo County Fairgrounds.
Right. So Maker Faire was something that I had no idea existed. But again, him being, a machining enthusiast.
3D printing, 3D design.
So he had convinced me to come with him and help film stuff. And I'm thinking, it's like, oh, okay, this may be kind of cool. And I had no idea what it was. I thought it was just going to be like a event for machining nerds. And it's like, as cool as it is, it's like, that's not necessarily my cup of tea. But it was way more than that. Like, there was a whole crafting section. That was your jam. There were people making homemade jewelry and like fabrics, and then there was like a whole tent dedicated to food and cooking and custom made teas, and I went bananas in there.
You don't say.
So it was an incredible experience because it was so much more than I thought it was, and sadly it's not an event that is held anymore, at least out here. If anyone is curious as to more information or what exactly it looked like, we'll put a little tag up in the video so that you can go see. the footage that we filmed from that year.
I mean, I almost have felt like it'd be fun to just do an unlisted video where I just post like just compile up all the raw footage that you shot, just or even highlights of the footage, just to show people like kind of like the peak stuff that may have never made it on camera, never made it in video. I mean, but moving on.
But that was definitely an opportunity, and I didn't even really think about it that way. But it was an opportunity where I could get more filming practice. And then after that, once I graduated from undergrad, because of my very, very generous aunt, who basically gifted me as a graduation present to come with her to Europe on vacation, and I had never been to Europe before, let alone I don't think I had done much international travel at that point. You basically said, it's like, okay, I am gonna make you your very own 3D printed camera rig. Here's like, a knockoff action cam that you can buy, because I didn't really want to fork out the money for a GoPro at that time.
Yeah.
And go film some stuff, go have fun, and you can show me what you film when you get back. So I said, okay.
Sounds hard enough.
And I didn't really know what I was going to do, but it ended up being, and the camera rig that he made, I think your idea behind the design was because it was going to be used in water, that you wanted it to be visible. So he made
orange.
This bright orange camera rig, so there was no way that you could miss it. So I looked like a complete tourist running around Paris and later Croatia with this orange camera rig around my neck, filming everything in sight with absolutely no shame, because I was just like, I can't believe I'm here. This is amazing. And my French is terrible, but I'm doing my best. And I ended up filming so much stuff, but the thing that I really loved about having that camera rig and using the action cam was I felt like I could film stuff without being completely distracted by it. And that was a thing that was really important to me, is that I didn't want to miss being in the moment and then live through the camera footage later on, thinking it's like, oh man, I actually don't really remember what it was like to be there. This is all I have. And that's something that can be very difficult to do, is like when you get excited and you want to film stuff, is that you just kind of miss being there.
Yeah.
So I made an effort, even though I was filming stuff, to still not be looking through the camera lens the entire time, and making sure that it's like the memories that I was making there were memories that I could remember because I was actually there and not because I filmed it. So that was one of those things that made that rig attractive to me. And then later on, we did, I think our first trip that we did together, or camping trip anyway, was Death Valley.
Yeah.
And I didn't even have my YouTube channel at that point. I didn't even think about doing any of that. But what I ended up doing is, when I came back from my Europe trip and we downloaded the footage, and we decided, since he has the computer that has the editing software
and the power to do it as well.
Exactly. The channel wouldn't exist unless he had the editing software to do it. We made up some videos, thinking nothing of it, that, this is something that's like, yeah, cool, we could show the family, maybe I could show some of my friends if they were curious. But I would have so many people that would come up to me in various settings, like friends and stuff, that would ask how my trip was after I came back. And I found that I really couldn't find any words to describe it. It was just so surreal that I felt like I couldn't do it justice by just saying or describing with words what it was like. So at that point, I was thinking, you know what? Here. I've got these videos, they're on my YouTube channel, make a post on Instagram. Anybody who is at all curious as to what it's like, there. That was a taste of what it's like. Go check out these videos. And again, didn't really think much of it. It was just kind of a one-time deal.
It was like, hey, this is what I did. Check it out. Like it or not, so be it. Don't care.
Exactly. And then after we did the Death Valley trip and we filmed that was kind of also one of those things where it's like we weren't just doing it for fun. You were kind of doing it for a school project.
Well, do you want me to explain the whole backstory behind that? I can do it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
So I was in a California history class with my instructor, Nancy Wilkinson. Nancy, if you are watching this, I loved you as a history instructor. You were awesome. It was a California history class, and one of the requirements of the class was you had to go somewhere in California of historical significance you'd never been to before. Well, we had actually discussed going to Death Valley kind of before I even really, I like mentioned that we had, that was a class prompt, but we didn't really, I was thinking, oh, I can just drive somewhere for the day and find something. Big deal. But then you had kind of mentioned that you'd wanted to go out to Death Valley, and then I talked to Nancy, and I said, hey, is it okay? She goes, oh my gosh, Death Valley, if you need help, totally. And then I mentioned offhand, hey, I might film a video with my friend. If I do that, do you want me to send you the link? I mean, I still had to do a little write-up on it. She's like, yeah, by all means, please do. I haven't been out there in years. So we shot the video, we edited the video, we put it up, I emailed it to her, and she goes, oh, cool, thanks for the video. I'll check it out. And then we get back to class after Thanksgiving break. And
After we had done the trip.
And we'd done the trip because we did it over Thanksgiving break. And I remember in class, she's all like, oh, and Calvin shot a video from Death Valley. Calls it up on her MacBook or whatever, and boom, there's the video. And there's you in Croatia popping out of the water. And then there's Death Valley. And she absolutely loved the video. Like, I'm not even kidding. She thought it was awesome, and it was cool because there were actually, hey, does anybody have any questions about it? I mean, actually some people who were kind of curious about, what it was like out there, curious about visiting it. I actually had a couple of people asking me afterwards about what it was like out there.
And you weren't expecting the video to be shown in class
No,
at all.
I just was like, do you want to see the video? Because we were going to shoot the video for fun, and I know that she loved to travel to various places, but she couldn't do it as much. And I just offered just to be polite, because obviously she's like, yeah, if you take some photos, please include a couple of them in there as proof you went. If you have photos you want to share with me, I would love to see them. She very much was like, kind of like, I want to kind of live the trip through you, see what you saw, see what's changed. But that's kind of when it really hit me. It's like, oh, shoot. There is something to doing these videos. Like, people actually enjoy it.
Yeah, and it was one of those things after that. It's like, you know what? This is kind of fun. This is something that, maybe we could make a regular thing out of. And then there were trips that I went with my family. Like, we went on a Sequoia trip and I filmed some stuff.
The butterfly.
Yeah, the butterfly trip. That was something that I decided to film as well. And then we've been on plenty of camping trips after that. There was one when I went to visit my best friend on the East Coast. I did some filming there. So, yeah, it just kind of snowballed from there. And at that point is where I guess you could say that the Livin' the Adventure channel was born. And it was one of those things where it's like, I was never expecting to make any money off of this. This isn't something that I was planning to be a career or anything like that. And my channel's not super big. I don't ever plan that it's going to be that big.
We just want to hit 100 subscribers so we can get the custom channel URL. That's all that matters. After that, we're done. I'm joking.
But, yeah. I mean, this is something that purely I do it because I enjoy doing it. It is a hobby. And if only a few other people enjoy watching the videos, that's still enough for me. And I want to keep it that way, even if it does get a little bigger, because at the end of the day, if it gets to the point where I feel that there is pressure to film things, then it just doesn't become fun anymore. And it becomes more of a chore. And I do not want it to become that, because I want this to stay as something that is fun.
And I can speak to personal experience on that. I mean, as we're filming this, I'm creeping up on, I think it's 4,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel. And yeah, there are days where I'm not going to lie. There's days where I'm kind of like, I know I need to make a video, and I enjoy doing it. But at the same time, it's not that it's necessarily a chore. It's just it can sometimes be hard to get into that mindset of, okay, great, I got to do another video. And yeah, that's definitely something where you got to be realistic about it. It's like, is this a hobby? Is this a career? The two don't mesh together. And as my friend Scott would say, I'm doing this for either fun or profit, and if it's not one, it better be a whole heck of a lot of the other. But it totally applies here. We're not making anything off of it. I can tell you from personal experience doing YouTube, last year I finally made enough money to declare my income on my taxes.
Yay!
All of $628. You know, and I'm not saying $628 isn't something, but it's like, you know, you can only go on so many trips with that much money. But I digress. Just to be brutally honest about the realities of if this channel was monetized, we'd be lucky to make enough money to like buy a can of soda over at the general store over there.
Yeah, it's not a cash cow by any means, and that's fine.
No, and I think it's actually nice in the way that it's like we don't have that stress of we're doing this and we got to make it perfect. It's just we go out there and we have fun, and whatever happens, happens. And that's what I love about it is, make a video or not out of it, we still had that experience. We still had fun. We still got out. And that, to me, is, I think, the most important part.
Mm-hmm. And that's the main purpose of this channel that I had always wanted, is more than just, you know, to get people to look at it, was that people can enjoy what we saw, what we put together, and get a taste of what it was like. So maybe if it's somebody that maybe for whatever reason they can't travel to these places, they can at least live through it a little bit. And that's part of the reason why I like doing the first person shot, because no offense to other travel channels where they literally have like a shot with them in it all the time, or they're talking about the places, because it's like those have their place, obviously.
Oh yeah.
But I find that I prefer to let the environment that I'm in speak for itself, instead of me placing myself in it and saying, hey, look, I'm here. This is what's so awesome about this place. This is what I did. Da-da, 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 da-da. And that's just not me. I don't like that. It's not that I don't like being in front of the camera ever. It's just that I like to keep that to a minimum.
No, and I mean, the thing that we were discussing actually before we whipped out the camera is Danielle was commenting on the fact that it's like at least half the people that follow your channel are people that know me from what I do, either the model train stuff, the YouTube channel, Twitter, things like that.
It helps that you have all the promotion credentials.
Yes, it helps that I'm kind of known for better or for worse. But the coolest thing is, though, it's like there's a friend of mine who, because of health reasons and financial reasons, he loves the outdoors. He can't make it out in the outdoors as much as he'd love to, but he absolutely enjoys the videos that we put together because it allows him to be there without traveling halfway across halfway to 3/4 across the United States to go and check it out. And you know, it means a lot to me that we're able to offer that to people who can't make it out for whatever reason, to go and experience it along with us. Because I'm not going to lie, it's a bit of work to put these videos together. There's a lot of equipment that we have to haul around. It's you know, we do have to think about, okay, did we get enough shots? Does this look good? What's the lighting like? We don't go neurotic over it, but there is a lot of work involved. You know, there's all the post-production work. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, when you know that you're giving somebody that ability to see something they would never see otherwise, that kind of gives you that oomph to keep doing it.
Yeah, it means a lot that there are people out there that can appreciate it for that purpose. And on the flip side of that, for those who maybe are thinking about going out to some of these places that we visit, or they're aspiring to, or maybe they just don't know how to get started, or they're wondering, is it really worth it or not, then these videos are a way for people to get a taste of those places and see, yes, this is totally worth going out here, and here's how you can get here. Here's a couple of tips as far as, you know, how to find camping or stuff like that. Again, I don't really do a lot of that on camera. I do that more in like the comic section, because that's just, I prefer to do it that way. But yeah, I don't necessarily want people to just live through these videos and never go see these places themselves. I want to inspire people to go and see these places for themselves, because, as I said before, getting out in nature of any kind, it can be a 3-hour drive away, or it could be 10 minutes away from your house. There is something that is so rejuvenating about it. Plus, you're getting good exercise walking around. And yeah, it's something that I think everybody can benefit from.
Oh, for sure. I mean, on our way out, we were reminiscing about past trips and amazed at what we've been able to pull off and things like that. And yeah, there is, I mean, I'm not going to go into the details of it because it's personal stuff, but I'm not going to lie. I'm going through some tough stuff in my personal life right now involving not directly with me, but involving people I know. And it's nice to just get out and unplug and, in a sense, just kind of reset from what's going on and kind of look at it, come back in a day or two to the way things are going and be like, okay, what do I want to do now? How am I going to handle this? But it's nice to just get out and kind of just hit the mental reset button.
Yeah, definitely. And another thing that I want to note on here is, and again, it depends on where you go, but I know that there are also people that, they may not have a car or they can't afford to rent one because, renting is expensive.
Bloody expensive.
Renting is expensive right now. And that's another thing that we actually did a trip in the past, and we'll probably do a separate cast on that, a Yosemite trip where instead of driving, we took public transit the entire time to see how possible it was.
And it's totally doable.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's another thing, is just showing people that getting to some of these places is more accessible than you think.
Well, heck, when we were over at the case in point, when we were over at the general store, there was a tour bus that just rolled up with people on board. I don't know all the details of it, like what the package deal included, but it was cool to see a tour bus full of people actually coming out here. And even if you just get off the bus and run around for a little bit and get back on the bus and go home, at least it gives you a taste of it, so you can kind of be like, hey, this is actually pretty cool, and the drive out here was really pretty. It's cool to see things like that because, they're not everywhere is accessible super easily, but yeah, it's one of those things that it's kind of like, look and see what is accessible, like what can you get to. That might actually be interesting to look into in the future, to make like a list of parks that there are, shuttle buses, either like with Yosemite and Yarts or things like that, to kind of just give an idea. And yeah, it would be fun to do that again, where we intentionally take transit to get somewhere. Might not be as efficient as driving it, but the point is to show, hey, you can do this. You can get there. You don't, or, yeah. And I think that would be really cool. And you don't have to bike for like 10 days to get there.
Unless you want to.
Hey, more power to you.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that would be a good thing to do in the future. And if there are any other subjects that you guys want us to cover, leave them in the comments. We would love to hear feedback. And again, this show is kind of in its infancy right now. We'll see how this goes. But again, this is, we're at a fire pit right now. It's not burning right now, but it's kind of like we're trying to do a fireside chat.
We literally have my audio recorder sitting on some wood. We have your cell phone acting as a teleprompter, and we have my GoPro on a log right now. It doesn't get much better than this.
So yeah, okay. So yeah, we'll wrap this up here. Any other words of advice for potential travelers out there?
I'm gonna say, as awesome as having a GoPro is, if you can't afford to get one, cell phones these days film great quality video. They don't have potato cameras in them anymore. Even a couple-year-old cell phones can work.
Some cell phones actually film better than the GoPro I've seen.
Yeah, the point is, if you only have a cell phone, there's free apps, or you can spend a couple of dollars for an app like YouCut or things like that allow you to cut clips together. It might not be as easy as doing it on a computer, but you can totally do things using a phone. And if you do get to that point where you feel like, hey, I've saved up my money, I can afford a GoPro, I feel the need for one, you can totally go ahead and do that. But don't feel like you need $1,000 laptop like a gaming laptop like what I edit on, and you need a $300 GoPro and a $100 Tascam audio recorder, and you're in $1,500 before you start filming. You don't need anything like that. Just start out with what you have, get comfortable with it, and really see if this is for you. There is no shame if you try doing it and you just can't get into the groove of filming. I know some people are very self-conscious, and that's perfectly fine about filming, and just aren't comfortable with it. And you know what? If that's you, don't force yourself to do it if you're not comfortable. Just go out there and have fun. Don't feel like you have to film it. But if you really want to, just practice. That's all I can say. Practice learning what works. Practice learning what doesn't work. I mean, you started doing the iconic underwater shots just on a whim because you're like, oh, I wonder what this looks like. And it's pretty much become a thing.
That's literally how I got all of my experience with filming things, was just trying things out and seeing what worked and what didn't.
And at the end of the day, it doesn't really cost you anything other than your time and maybe a little bit of storage on your device. If it doesn't work, it's not like the olden days with film where you didn't know what you had until you've developed it. So don't put yourself into a dangerous situation, and don't take undue risks.
Yes, please don't.
But at the same time, don't be scared to get a bit creative. I mean, some of our greatest things that we've done, like sticking cameras on the hood of our vehicles as we're driving, were literally done on a whim. Like, I wonder what that would look like. And it's awesome. I mean, we've gotten some incredible shots just by doing, I wonder what that would look like.
Pretty much. And as I said before, again, this was a personal thing for me, but I would still recommend this to anybody who is thinking about, filming places that they go and stuff like that. Don't live through your camera.
No.
Because the last thing you want is to get all that great footage, obviously, which is great, but then if you don't remember what it was like being there, because it's like you only get maybe some sound depending on what sound your camera can pick up and the sights with a video, but you don't get the feeling as far as the temperature or the air or the smells and
the bugs in your face.
Hopefully not so much of that, but
you know what I mean.
And it sounds a little corny, yes, but as fun as it is to watch videos of natural places, nothing is going to compare to being there. So if you do get a chance to get out to these places, again, I highly recommend that you do. Make sure that you take time to really live in that moment of being there so that you have those memories etched in your mind. And when you watch maybe the videos that you film, if you decide to do that, again, it's okay if you don't want to.
No pressure either way.
Yeah. Then you can watch that video, but you can also remember, oh, I remember what that was like. I remember what it smelled like. I remember what it felt like. Or I remember eating a certain meal when I was there. And that's the thing that makes these trips so memorable and special, is being able to reminisce about all the experiences that you had instead of just looking at it through a camera lens.
Well, it's also handy, who threw the first snowball.
That's another story for another time.
But no, there are fun things in there, kind of like, and it's also nice, even if you don't do the video publicly, you can kind of even just make a video diary of what it was like out there. Things you liked, things you didn't like, things you want to see, things you didn't get, things you saw that were worth it, things that weren't. And that's handy if you go back and visit somewhere again, because you can very quickly watch that and go, oh yeah, I remember I wanted to see that and I didn't get to see it. There's so many things that you can kind of experience through that. But yeah, I think that's a good spot to wind this up down. Wind this up on. I'm hungry.
Well, thank you for all of those who made it to the end. We appreciate it. Yeah, if you're on YouTube, or even if you're on, some podcasting site, share,
like, comment, subscribe.
I never.
James, as James May would say, like, comment, subscribe. There, I said it.
Yeah, I never do those kinds of things, so it's weird for me. But yeah, and hopefully these little talks that we have can inspire you to go out and live your own adventures, as we've done. All right, take care, y'all.
Peace.
Bye.